every time something big happens in the world, Pluto's involved.
I'm not religious. I do think some of the Gnostic traditions have some real gems in there. And if you read the Gospel of Thomas, you'll see what Jesus really was talking about, your pineal gland, your spiritual life.
We used to be taught, at least when I was young, that, hey, if you want to get ahead in the world, you just need to work harder. That's no longer true. What's true is if you want to get ahead in the world, you need to own assets. And the sooner you do it, the better. So if you can do it at age 5, do it at age 5.
Welcome to Lunatic Astrology. In today's interview, Dean Baldridge, an astrological researcher of mundane astrology, is going to talk about Barbault Basket. A lot of news stories have been out in the public about this formation in our sky with Jupiter opposite Pluto. He's going to talk about how this may dramatically impact the wealth, the infrastructure, the trade patterns, and the healthcare system, especially of the United States of America. So I'm going to welcome Dean into our room and we shall get started today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join me in my Sky Reader program that starts in September. All information is in the description box below. So we have Dean Baldridge with us today, our research astrologer who told me that he's under a rock most of the time. Welcome, Dean. Tell us a bit about how you became an astrologer. I understand that you were more of a businessman before this.
Yeah, so basically I was a business analyst. I worked for large corporations and I studied astrology for about 20 years. And I just follow the astrology, what's going on. I've done readings for a lot of people and I just decided that I didn't want to do that anymore. And basically I come out from underneath my rock to help people when asked to do so. So I'm a fourth house Virgo. My Mercury, Sun, Uranus, and Pluto are conjunct in the fourth house. I have a Leo moon and Saturn is in Pisces at 0 degrees for me. The eclipses are hitting all kinds of places on my chart. I have Jupiter on my moon right now. And so the world's just telling me I need to come out and talk to you guys and tell you what my impressions of what's going on in the world and let Lori be the astrologer and I'll just kind of talk about the bigger picture of things.
That sounds wonderful. You had shared with me a sort of a slideshow brief of some kind of about a month ago, and I was intrigued because some of your observations about the different ways that the world worked before the 1940s and how they operates now has been fascinating, especially regarding infrastructure and the world system. So I'm so excited. I'll let you lead on the slideshow.
Okay, great. So I put together a little slideshow here. I have lots of slides, but I'm only going to cover a couple of them. But basically, we have looked at 2 centuries of living standards increasing, and it's really been remarkable growth for humanity. And we really need to be proud of ourselves as human beings of how far we have come. When I was born in 1964, 55 to 60% of the world was living in poverty. Right now, today, it's under 10%, and it's probably roughly between 8 and 9%. And that's pretty amazing that we've brought that many people out of poverty in this world. We have created an enormous amount of wealth, and we should be really proud of that as well. And now it's time that we need to make some changes because we're going to change from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. And that is really a different way of thinking about how we understand the world and how we work with the world. And this transition's a long transition. I've talked to a lot of astrologers. There isn't really a consensus on when's the beginning of the age or when's the end of the last age. But it's roughly around this period is what most astrologers believe it is. Now, behind me is Einstein, and the reason why I love Mr. Einstein here is because he does thought experiments. So what if we have a situation where we have unlimited intelligence, we have energy costs that are near zero, and we have labor costs that are near zero? What happens to wealth? Wealth is created through manufacturing. That's how all wealth is created. So if you take like Microsoft, for instance, they're not really creating wealth. What they're doing is creating efficiency, and that efficiency is allowing others to create wealth. And then people are paying Microsoft a tremendous amount of money for the efficiency gains that they're producing. The whole world works on manufacturing. And once we get to the point where we have unlimited intelligence, zero cost energy, zero cost labor, then basically what we're living in is a world of unlimited wealth at that point. Now, there's a lot of problems with this that are created because we don't know how to live in this world yet. And we're right on the verge of making this all happen. So it's really the trifecta of abundance. It's the AI, the robots, the zero cost energy. And when all of these come together, we have to transform as a society because we're post-scarcity at that point. There is no poor people at that point, at least there shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be able to make that transformation. So when I listen to Lori, and I've listened to her a lot, she's talking about Pluto going out of bounds. For me, what that means is the people who rule our world, and I'm going to share who those people are, right? Who are making the decisions for us as a human race. They don't know how to deal with this. And they're going to have to try to figure it out. And so they're putting the resources in place to try to figure that out. Just recently, JD Vance was on Joe Rogan, and he was sitting there talking about the next generation of physics that comes after Einstein's physics. So we had Newtonian physics, we had Einstein physics, and now we're getting into the next generation physics. And what that really means is quantum vacuum physics. That's what we're talking about here. Now, whether we figured that out or if it came from the aliens, I have no idea. But we're very, very close to be able to make energy out of nothing, out of vacuum. And when you get into that space, then everything transforms. So just to give you an example, we have spent hundreds of years putting garbage into landfills. Now, if we have these conditions, we can now, every single landfill is basically a commodities resource. We can open up our landfills, bring all the stuff back out and remanufacture stuff. Like I said, unlimited wealth is really what we're on the edge of. And what it really means is we need to figure out how to implement that. What does that look like? How does that work across the world? And then also, how do we maintain what's going on in the world until we make to that transition? And so that's what the people in power are talking about. And they're having open conversations about it. It's just that people don't know what they're listening to. So they don't know how to perceive what actually these conversations are about. I want to go to this chart right here. This is US productivity versus real wages. And this is the productivity pay gap. So what happened in the 1960s, we had that conjunction of Pluto and Uranus, and that started a revolution of technology, labor, healthcare, and environment. And all those things are going to be massively impacted about what's going to happen in this century. But what happened is as the technology increased, net productivity increased, and then the corporations became extremely rich off that. But compensation of the wages for the worker was not increased significantly. And so there was a decoupling in the 1970s between productivity and real wage growth. We used to be taught, at least when I was young, that, hey, if you want to get ahead in the world, you just need to work harder. That's no longer true. What's true is if you want to get ahead in the world, you need to own assets. And the sooner you do it, the better. So if you can do it at age 5, do it at age 5, because what happens is basically the longer you own assets, the richer you will become. And that's how the wealthy are becoming rich. They're owning assets. And as the national debt grows in the United States, those assets go up in price, and it's making everybody rich who owns assets. The people who don't own assets are the ones that are basically forced to keep working. And so what I'd like to tell everybody is go open a Vanguard account and buy assets as soon as possible, and get on that ride of wealth. But what caused this is basically what happened after World War II. So there's two basic economic systems in the United States. The first one is called the American system. And this is what Trump was talking about in 2016. And this is what freaked out the world, why everybody came out against Trump. Because the world was focused on globalism. And Trump was talking about switching back to economic systems, to a different economic system that we had previously. And the world was like, no, we can't do that. So um, the problem is that the way how it's globalism, it's called the English system. The way how that works is it really outsources to low cost regions. And that whole model blows up as soon as you get into this post-scarcity world where basically globalism no longer functions. The American system will work as well, but not very long because, again, the whole system breaks down because these two systems doesn't support the new reality. And so um, one of the things that has to happen is our leaders have to figure out how to remake the world so that everybody can share in the wealth and that we can make the transition into the new reality happen without too much friction. Okay, I talked about Pluto. So there's two Plutos that I want to talk about. The first one I want to talk about is the city of London. This was created at 47 AD, so shortly after Christ's death. Basically, the city of London was created, and it became a corporation in 1189. So this is they have total sovereignty over themselves. It's a square mile within London, and these are the big banks. These are the I want to say the insurance people. There's trillions of dollars going through this. They basically own the Republican and Democratic Party. When you hear about the Uniparty, it's really about plugging into the city of London, the special relationship that's always talked about. It's really about this powerhouse right here. And these people are not good or evil. They just are doing business. And so, and they look at it that way. And so the way how they behave and the way how they function really is really really tied to how do we make money? How do we continue to keep the money flowing? Those kind of things. They have rumored to kill 4 U.S. presidents. I don't know if that's true. It's just a rumor. They were
Wow.
they were involved in the Revolutionary War. They bankrolled the British. In the War of 1812, they funded both sides. So they funded the British, and then after the United States won, we were broke, and then they came back and funded the United States. In the Civil War, it was actually it was a war about these two economic systems competing against each other. The South representing globalism, the North representing the American system, and the South was all about slavery, right? It's always about getting the low-cost labor, and the American system is always about protecting the workers and making sure that they're protected. And so the war was actually over these two systems. So when it really comes down to is that these are the people that basically, if you think of Pluto in Capricorn, right, and then it makes that transition to 27 degrees of Capricorn, which is the Pluto of the United States, right? We had a revolutionary war at that time, 250 years ago, and we just came out of another one. And the war wasn't kinetic, the war was about financial systems, which financial systems were going to be operating. And Trump representing the American system and the world representing the globalism. And like I said, both systems won't work, but globalism is falling apart because we're running out of poor people. I want to talk about Ruth Porat. So this is the most powerful woman on Wall Street. I know who she is. She could probably walk through any town and nobody would recognize her. She's currently ranked as the 12th on the Forbes list for the most powerful woman in the world. This woman could call any leader in the world and they would pick up the phone, including Donald Trump. She's incredibly intelligent, and she came from Britain. She's a British American business executive. She is the president and CEO of the Alphabet company. And she's one of those people that are making these transitions possible. So she is the face of what I want to call the transition between Pluto and Capricorn, Pluto going over at 27 degrees, and then Pluto going into Aquarius. So she changed her positions based on what Pluto was doing. So she She was 100% behind Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was definitely for globalism. She was to the point where she was fundraising for Hillary Clinton. That's how much she supported her. Just a few weeks ago, she was standing behind Donald Trump at his desk and working on this Genesis mission, which was a $190 billion project to really bring AI and also some other technology into supercomputing back into reality. And they're trying to get this put into place by 2028.
Wow.
This is a person you want to watch, right? Now it's not just her, it's the whole industry, it's NASDAQ. So I want you to think about this. This is the tech executives. This is the new Pluto. This is the Aquarius Pluto, right? Look at the money that's here. This is $36 trillion. I don't know if you guys know how much money that is, but it's a lot, right? NVIDIA is at almost $5 trillion. Alphabet is at 4.33. We have Apple at 4.25. Microsoft's at 2.77. These are trillions of dollars that these companies are worth. And the NASDAQ is basically made that transition from moving from globalism to the American system. But again, I think that's going to be a temporary situation until the power people can figure out how we're going to make this transition to a post-scarcity world. I want to go to King Charles. So he visited the White House. Now, most people don't even realize how important this trip was. But again, we just had a Revolutionary War, and the Revolutionary War was over our economic systems. And when King Charles came to the White House, it was the end of the free trade agreement, permanently shifting alliances to a new era, to targeted tariffs and those kind of things. What we're talking about is the American system. And if you listen to the speech, you could hear those two different financial systems being spoken about. I left this. I know you love whole sign houses, Lori. I left this in equal house system because the British love that system. And basically, you can see where Pluto is and how it's squaring the sun, and everything is about finances in his chart. This is the moment he shook hands. This particular moment, the transits, and you can kind of see how this is. This is a very, very powerful moment. All the leaders understood what this moment meant in the world. Everybody who identifies with Pluto, all the world leaders, they understood this. Most people didn't even know it happened. So this is a big, big deal. Prior to going to the G7 summit, what Trump publicly stated was these tech executives were looking to redistribute wealth back to the American people. Okay, that is on record. Fox Business got it wrong. They reported it and they didn't get it correct. The New York Times did get it correct. I was shocked that New York Times finally got something correct because they typically get things wrong all the time.
On purpose.
On purpose. These G7 people these tech executives showed up at the G7 meeting. These people are becoming the new power people in the world. And all these people, specifically, this guy right here, they have backgrounds, and their backgrounds is saying, hey, I want to do something for society. I mean, basically, Sergey's basically said, I fled socialism with my family in 1979, and I know it's devastating and oppressive society it creates in the Soviet Union. So all these people basically have histories, and they want to make the world a better place. If you look at Ruth here, she's worth billions. She doesn't need to do any of this. Why is she doing it? She's doing it because she wants to make a world a better place. And so I'm not saying she's going to operate perfectly or all of her decisions are perfect, but I'm saying that basically these people that I'm presenting here have a mission, and their mission is to really make the world a better place. And that's what we're right on the edge of seeing, and what we're about ready to experience. In my opinion, this is where the world's going with the basket that's talked about quite a bit. That's pretty much all I got, Lori.
Wow. So let's talk about the Pluto out of bounds for a sec.
Okay.
So because Rosie Finn has done some research there, which I find fascinating, and she's all about the cyclical nature of north and south declination. And Pluto is like a sine wave in the trough of the ecliptic, and he continually has gone above and below or north and south of the ecliptic trough. And in so doing, she's noticed that when Pluto is out of bounds in the north declination, we do have the rise of tyranny, despotism, Stalin, Hitler. We had, the IMF, the Bretton Woods institutions. We had the formation of, and we had a system that was put into place, right, starting in the 1940s into the early 50s, post World War II, and including, I believe, the Hiroshima Nagasaki time as well. And then we come right back here to where we are now, and Pluto is now going into the south declination. It started last summer, like the end of August into early fall or November, and it's back again now. And Pluto will continually do this dip, for the next decade in the south declination. And then he will cease and desist, and he will no longer be in a trough above or below the ecliptic. He will continuously stay within that channel. And at the same time that that is happening, it begs a question. The cycle humanity's been under, where the powerful seem to dominate the powerless or the everyday or the worker class, and where the worker class revolts, because the revolutions in the past from the everyday working class, peasant class, etc., against their overlords has looked like the American and French revolutions, Pluto out of bounds, south declination. It's looked like the Protestant Reformation, which is to take the power back from the tithing church, right, and give more freedom to the people. And so I guess I sort of wonder if this dialectic is coming to a close and we're no longer going to be under that spell one way or the other. Because when you're talking about the globalist system versus the American system, which is isolationist and focused on, preserving the lifestyle of the everyday person in the work world, and then the globalists looking for poor people to do all the work, and the rich are getting richer. But either system, what you're implying, requires a third option. And similarly, Pluto is no longer going above and below the ecliptic south and north, and therefore now we have no more of that dialectic, right? This or that, this or that. There's something new. Is that how you're seeing that?
There's something new that they're basically, if you listen to Scott Benson, the Trump accounts are the start of, right? So the Trump accounts have been in the news, and it's really about, I've talked about assets, and it's really about giving children assets. So by the time they are 18 years old, for instance, they'll have like $300,000. And if they keep holding on to that amount, by the time they're 27, they could, have a significant amount of money. Scott Benson in his speech was talking about we need to do the same thing for adults. So the people who are in power are trying to figure out how to transfer assets over to people. And it's being talked about within the White House. It's being talked about by the people that I'm talking about on these screens here, which are the tech people. That is the new. That's the new that's coming in. That I have never seen in the history of mankind, right? The wealth trying to figure out how to transfer wealth to other people and do it responsibly. When you look at the city of London, it sets up conflicts, and they make money off of conflicts. And I'll use an example, for instance, take abortion. Abortion is one of those issues that appeared to be insolvable, but people were making, on both sides, were making money and making, benefiting from the conflict itself. Now, the conflict resolved when the American people were allowed to vote on it, and because the position of the American people is they're against abortion, but they're not going to make it illegal, and they're not going to stop somebody who wants an abortion from having one. That's the position that they have, and it was resolved through the voting system, and then the conflict went away. And there's no advantage to anybody by using it to try to make money at this point because the conflict's resolved. You talk about the blue and white state all the time. That was put in the Middle East. They knew that it was going to produce a conflict, and it was be unresolvable conflict. And of course, the city of London was able to make money off that conflict. The whole Middle East is one conflict-ridden area of the world, and because of the conflict, they're able to control people, control how money flows, who does what, those kind of things, but they make money off it. The drug people, for instance, they're making huge amounts of money. So, Trump's like um, a bull in a china shop that he brings, right? So he's killing everybody in South America that's dealing with um, that's dealing with drugs and all that. He's cleaning it all up, right? Well, who is he really upsetting? The city of London, because they're making money off that. Um, so, so basically, the world's being reorganized, and the question is, and I'm not saying it's all going to be good, but the simple truth of the matter is, when you live in a post-scarcity world, what is there to argue over anymore, right? Why would you want to do evil if you don't have to do evil? Like, for instance, all the corruption that we see in government today. If you don't need to do that, if you can have a happy existence without doing it, why would you waste your energy being corrupt?
Right.
Um,
Well, then I
that's
have a, yeah,
that's where
yes.
I think we're going.
Right. Well, you
I,
can definitely neutralize the power broking incorporated square mile of London elite power broking families who might in fact be demonic, but anyway, who are worshiping Baal and the demiurge. Go Gnostic, I'll go Gnostic on you. But
I
like,
don't
I mean,
disagree that those things could possibly exist, but I'm not going to assign them evil. I'm just going to say they're doing it for business. It's just business to them. For most of the people involved in this, it's just business.
right. At what point, though, does just doing business by creating artificially manufacturing polarity, division, conflict, hate, uh, at what point does that strategy not just become ultimately dull? Because I wonder how much money one can have and still have fun making it, unless there's another force moving through that crew, that segment of humanity that is about keeping humanity from harmony, from connectedness, from a recognition of our shared humanity. And the only thing that would do that would be the anti Christ, so to speak. So I'm not religious. I do think some of the Gnostic traditions have some real gems in there. And if you read the Gospel of Thomas, you'll see what Jesus really was talking about, your pineal gland, your spiritual life. But I have a question about the astrology relative to your thesis, and that is, if we are to sort of democratize wealth through asset sharing, then wealth is built on scarcity. That's why we have Ponzi schemes, right? Without the scarcity factor, right? Like you're climbing your way to get buy that asset, and it's climbing because someone else wants to buy it from you, and the next person wants to buy that stock, that equity, that bond, that stock of gold, that exchange traded fund. Everyone is competing to get it because it's valued, right? That escalation of value is based on human greed. And so if all of a sudden you democratize that and say somehow everybody's got assets and everybody's invested in holding assets for a sense of value and wealth, then where is that system itself seems to me ready to implode. I think you can't really build the existing asset escalation wealth model based on greed, right? If you now allow for some sort of neutral democratization where every single person is given a share in some particular part of the stock market. Do you know what I'm saying?
I don't think you bring everybody to equal wealth. I think what will happen is that everybody will have a minimalized, like, for instance, if you don't want to do anything in your life and all you want to do is drugs, you'll be probably provided food, housing, healthcare, and mental health stuff. In other words, we're really talking about a minimalistic existence if you're not going to provide anything to society. But I really don't know how this is going to work. And this is the reason why they're going to have, this is why there's quantum computing, right? Is because quantum computers can figure things out in 5 minutes that a mainframe can't figure out in a million years. So um, that that is the challenge for the Pluto people, right? So everybody who's creating this world, and and by the way, there's huge amounts of money that came over from Britain, from the city of London into Wall Street. So these people, I believe, have made the transfer into the new Pluto Aquarius energy. She definitely Ruth has done that. Um, they understand how hard and difficult this transition would be because you have to keep the world together, right? At the same time as you make all these transitions. And the simple truth of the matter is, I don't know how you map this out without some kind of super intelligence working on the behalf of the human race,
Hmm.
because because it is it's a huge problem. Because the whole world up to this point has worked on the fact that there's people who are poor and we're taking advantage of them. You think about China, for instance. China brought 800 million people out of poverty. Okay. Well, the whole time that China was in poverty, the whole world benefited the fact that those people were living in poverty and we could get really super cheap stuff from them. But now they're out of poverty. And so, and just like us, they want things for themselves and for their families and their loved ones, and they have lives, and they don't want to be a victim of globalism anymore. They want to basically get in a high standards of living. And so the question is when you only have 8% of the people left that you can take advantage of, the model doesn't work anymore. Um,
Yeah, that makes
and
total sense. Yeah.
and you're seeing the breakdown of it across Europe right now. If I sat there and this right here, this is a chart for the economic shift that was predicted, and you can see exactly where the time period he was talking. It's encircled, and you can see with the United States, which is a little bit more shifted over to the American system, and then globalism, and you see how Europe is doing, and understand that Europe is kind of propped up because the United States is giving Europe $1 trillion worth of towards its national defense and all those kind of things. You can just see that basically they're struggling with globalism here because it really doesn't work, right? And even this is
Hmm.
being propped up by all the immigration that they brought in. So the systems are breaking down because, like I said, you can't take advantage of your pool of people you can take advantage of is shrinking because we're actually getting people out of poverty, which is, in my mind, is a good thing. The world just needs to shift, and the thing is we're going to be able in our lifetimes be able to see how that shift takes place. Hopefully that will happen, and
Hmm.
it won't be equal for everybody. I talk about sometimes I talk about the astrology higher latitudes. This goes back to 2,000 years ago. Some countries are going to have a much more difficult time with it than the United States, for instance. So we can look at the astrology and predict how different countries are going to react, and you do a really super good job of it. Because I've listened to you. You're better than probably 30 to 40 different mundane astrologers that I have listened to. The only thing I think you're missing is the piece I'm bringing you here, which is the
Hmm.
bigger picture of why things have to shift, right? Why these shifts are taking place. It's because the economic systems aren't going to work anymore. So now we got to figure out how it's all going to work.
Yeah, and if you kind of add to your Barbault basket there, or the Barbault, mini grand trine with the Pluto opposition to Jupiter, forming what looks like a cradle or a basket, which is kind of cool because, good luck finding the last time this exactly happened. But also, we have that Chiron testing the Earth right now, right? All the way till 2030. Well, gotta have my
Yep.
brain offline, 33 maybe, but also just now until 2000 and this year, September 17th. So June 19th to September 17th, there's that Chiron in the fourth house amidst this very rare, highly unusual formation. And Chiron in the fourth house slash in your chart in Taurus, that goes back to what we're seeing already, right? We saw like oil and gas shortages, Jimmy Carter, the Iranian Revolution, the cyclical repetition of this stuff. But we also may see something to do with this displacement problem with the data centers, because in our modern day, what is a dust bowl? What could dry the climate out? What could cause problems? People are revolting against data centers. Because I saw one of your slides, you talking about the data center plan and Google maybe being like, plotting data center spots around the world or something.
But there's a story behind the data center stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
So there's a story that I found that basically China is sending billions of dollars to get people convinced that there's a problem with our data centers. So it's a strategy from China to deal with the fact that we're advancing too fast in AI. So when I read these stories about data centers, the first things I do is I go to the comment section and see if people are commenting, because I just read a news article today that said people are upset that data centers are getting built. And I'm sitting there going, who would be upset about a data center being built? And I go to the comment section and there's nobody posting about it, which means nobody's upset about these data centers. It's all being generated from the funding that they're receiving from China. So, yeah, I
Well,
have a
that's
different,
fascinating.
yeah,
That's fascinating.
I have a very different perspective on when I watch the news. I just sit there and smile and says, okay, so and so is manipulating so and so by doing this, and you have to dig deep to sit there and find all this stuff. Today, Trump is going to talk about a news conference, and I think he's going to talk about foreign influence in the elections. He better have the goods if he's going to say anything about it. If he doesn't have the goods, he's going to make himself look like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
But the simple truth of the matter is the United States is heavily influenced by outside powers, whether it's China, whether it's City of London, for instance. They have a lot of control over our Congress. I mean, these people really do run the United States. They're the not totally, but they have so much control over the United States politics. And I'll give you an example. The Kuwait War was not our war. There's no advantage. When we went to go into Iraq and to bring Kuwait back, it was all about the City of London. They were the ones that were losing money, and they're the ones that basically told George Bush, "Hey, go get the United States to kick Iraq out of Kuwait." That wasn't our war. There's no Americans that went to the president and said, "Hey, we need to go solve this." George
Mm-hmm.
Bush was listening to his government overlords, which is the City of London.
Absolutely. I mean, that to me is clear. There's a perpetual military industrial machine that benefits the very few and not the everyday person. And ultimately, the whole machinery is bent on creating division, conflict, and using that to extract wealth. It literally reminds me of the Matrix when people are plugged into the machine, right, to generate a battery of current. Like, the battery is human suffering, the battery is conflict, and the battery is a generation of money through manufactured war. Now, the whole City of London thing, without getting too down the rabbit hole, is probably also the banking families like the Rothschilds. And God forbid you talk Rothschilds without someone telling you that you are an anti-Semite. No, there is a very strong component of the wealthy who are in the banking system that are indeed from that family. So you can't not talk about that. Could you address that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to put person out. I don't want to sit there and call somebody out and say they're part of this system.
Fair
Um,
enough.
and the reason why is because these people are all about the money, and everything's a business decision. And if the rumors are true that they killed four American presidents for going against them, I sure to hell don't want to sit there and start a fight with them when I have no advantage.
That's so true. That's so true.
It's
Okay.
kind of like, yeah, if I'm going to fight with somebody, I'm going to win something, and I'm not going to win
Uh,
anything by, I mean, I'm by talking about the City of London too much or putting personalities to it.
sure. Fair
That's the
enough.
reason why I'm taking a very neutral position on them, which is these people are just doing business.
Mm. Okay, we'll go with that thesis that they're just doing business. In the
Yeah,
meantime, they obviously, yeah, in so doing, they're just doing business. There seems to be a lack of humanity within that framework, the kind of normal humanity that the everyday person has, which is, a caring, emotionally intelligent way of looking at the
but
reality around
but
them.
you can argue this metric right here from 55 to 60% to under 10% today came from globalism, which these people financially benefited from. So
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they're doing so their policy did some really good in the world, and that's probably how they went home and slept at night, right? Because they're sitting there saying, "Hey, we're making the world a better place, even how certain people are suffering." Um, but yeah,
Well, no, that's true. That's another big picture view of it all. Um, the end justifies the means, Machiavelli. What about that? I wasn't understanding, so I might think my viewers won't understand either. What you were implying about the basket diagram and talking about the northern latitudes, and you were implying that there would be a different impact on various countries based on latitude when you shared that. Can you explain that a little bit more for everyone?
Sure. This is the astrology of higher latitudes. So basically, whenever you have ascensions of Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, trines at higher attitudes, because of the way how the Earth works, basically it moves it more into a square. Um, and so and basically I put the source here, but basically based on that, Canada, for instance, would have a much more difficult time than the United States due to this basket configuration, just because they're at a higher latitude. And it has to do, and I put it here, and feel free to go research.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I figured this out I read some old book probably 15 years ago, and I decided to put a slide here. But you can kind of see also, how's Canada doing,
I was
right?
looking at that. Yeah, how is Canada doing? My God.
You know, and you have Mark Carney sitting there saying, "Hey, the rules-based order." Now, listen to what he's saying. Rules-based order. What is that? That's Pluto and Capricorn is over, right?
Well, the
It's like,
rules-based order with the rules-based order is the Pluto North Declination World War
yeah,
II into the early 50s institutions that were structured and the thought process, and including the whole idea that actually the United Nations has any particular objective power, and that we're all going
yeah,
to
they
follow
don't.
some sort of rules that everybody agrees on, and they're based on civilized rules and all agreeing on the higher moral value of this rule or this agenda. As we all know, we all have a higher moral value about not allowing a geocide to occur. Well, we all just watched a geocide occur in the Middle East. So, and there was no punitive measures with the courts for the war criminals that were declared such to be actually punished. So that
Right.
whole world-based order has left the average person, the everyday person, the 90% person of most countries in the world, exhausted, feeling a sense of futility, and not even anger and rage, because when you feel anger and rage at what is happening in the world, and you use that anger and rage, whether it's to protest or to do a boycott or whatever, and it still doesn't work, then you end up going into despair and futility. And a lot of people have just given up, just kind of like, there's nothing you can do to stop the system anymore. And that's where I see a lot of pain in the world. I see people not seeing a sense of we have any real power over what happens.
So I heard you say that, and I created this slide based on this because this is
Ah,
Uranus Pluto trine, right? And so basically, nearly half of America didn't know what the 250th celebration was all about. Okay, that just makes me really scared.
wow.
It's like, come on, fellow Americans, please understand. But 86% of the American people are grateful. 70% think the founding principles remain relevant today. Hey, that's a really, I don't see revolution here, right? We went through the friction of 2012 through 2015. And I think there's still people who are stuck in the friction era of 2012, 2015. But when I look at this and I look at these numbers, I really am hopeful that the American people will do well. I have no doubt that there'll be protests in the streets still and all that stuff. But the question is, will those protests gain traction to the point where that will force change? And I don't see that happening. So 56% worry about the US losing its freedom over the next 50 years. So that's a majority of people. They're concerned about political corruption, which to be perfectly honest, when I look at, so I took his interpretations and then I basically made my own, and I did this through deviated houses. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Made my own predictions based on that. But basically, we're going to see a dismantling of secret societies, dark money, and institutional corruption because there's going to be massive exposure.
I agree that I'm seeing in the astrology, I'm seeing it in my in my knowingness about that, like the sort of like the dark underlord rock has been lifted up, so to speak. And more people are a little bit jaded. They're definitely not taking everything at face value at this point. They're willing to look a little deeper, and they want to look a little deeper. They don't want, like, I love that you shared the slide about the people agree with the founding principles of America's Constitution. Masons, by the way, occultists created that
Yeah,
whole founding of America, and yet at the same time, we're seeing that it may not be actually operational right now. 50% think that it's like losing its value or something like that. Your loser freedoms, loser values, freedom of speech being so primary to the United States constitutional agenda, and people feeling shut down, like TikTok being bought by Larry Ellison, leading to nobody being able to say anything negative about what goes on in the Middle East. So this blatant disregard of some agendas that the founders had, I think the younger generation, the ones that are the Gen Zs for sure, and some of the millennials are going to be the ones that are moving towards resistance to the status quo in the next like 15 years. I mean, that's the generation that can, if anybody, save the day. But it's not the boomers who are satisfied resting on the days when you could get a wage that made money that you could buy a house, right?
absolutely. We have to get to a point in society where a couple can get married in their 20s, buy a house, and have children. That's the basics of society. We don't want women getting into their late 30s having children, and that's the only time they can afford to have children is in their late 30s.
Oh,
So
exactly.
there
Yeah.
has to be fundamental change of the way how our society works. And I'm hoping that out of bounds Pluto that you keep talking about is working on that. There's one thing that I want to say about this slide. 56% or 58% say no political party should be trusted with too much power. And it's like, amen. We don't want political parties are you give them too much power, they turn corrupt.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Maybe there will be a push for a third party system, a la Elon Musk agenda. Do you know there was something interesting about? I watched a show by Dan Waits, a colleague of mine, about the book that some fellow wrote, another astrologer researcher type, and his speculation that Pluto demoted to a dwarf planet or getting off of planetary status would be a beginning of a time when we will see that the archetype of Pluto loses its potency. Now, to expect that to happen is to also recognize that he's talking about, is there a collective agreement about something, and does our collective psychological agreement create some kind of reality? Yep, as you know, with probably Rick Tarnas and Cosmos and Psyche, you can see historically Pluto was doing his job before it was discovered. but
Absolutely.
but maybe what he's actually feeling is Pluto's getting a little bit, losing his potency because he no longer has the thrust to go above and below the ecliptic out of bounds, and that he's flatlining. Pluto seems to be flatlining, just like a sine wave, like, and now we have code blue or whatever. So if Pluto begins to flatline too, even though you're talking about the Pluto and Uranus story that we came into the opening square 2012 to 2015, and then the trinal energies picking up now. What if Pluto is flatlining in his celestial motion? That is also the same idea that the potency of Pluto, which can be control, despotism, power, and tyranny, it can be ruthless when paired with Mars and brutal, that power may be getting a little bit weakened as well, because Pluto in
Yeah, I'm
Aquarius.
I'm just gonna call bullshit. And I'm
You,
sorry.
you don't think
That
so, eh?
every
Well,
time I get fired in my life, it was always Pluto and Mars. Every single time.
right.
I was
Well,
like,
but you got to remember that Pluto just got demoted by astronomers a while ago, and then there's an afterglow where he still thinks he has power.
so
But
So, Lori, I know you to be an astrologer that knows all the asteroids. To me, if an asteroid's not round, it doesn't have any power over me. I like my asteroids round, and they're powerful if they're spheres. Pluto is a beautiful planet. We got a picture of it. It's got a big, huge heart on it.
okay, okay. Well,
And I think
that's another
I
debate.
think it's got huge amount of power. And it's basically because every time something big happens in the world, Pluto's involved.
Very true. Well, we'll see if it diminishes over the next 30 years or something, which I think was a projection of that particular fella. We'll see. Well, time will tell. But Rosie Finn's research and then the ending of the polarity or the dialectic between people of power of the people trying to grab the power back, and then the cycle just continues on and on. That is astronomically true, and that our software at this point can't find that. We don't have enough software data in place, I guess, to algorithmically figure out when this sine wave will go back above and below the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. There was something you said that made me wonder about something. The opening trine. Oh, I know. Pluto and Aquarius. Well, I was doing research a few years ago about this, and one of the features of Pluto Aquarius, besides meeting the other, Spaniards meet the indigenous people of South America, and they're like, whoa, you look different. So there's speculation non-human intelligence will be the next frontier. We'll meet non-human intelligence of some sort, because we seem to know every species and every people's in this world. It's not like something's going to come out of the Amazon and we go, whoa, hi, who are you? But it's more like Pluto and Aquarius has also been consistently activating historically times of microeconomic communities forming within the broader structures. So back in monarchical times, there were these other communities that would form outside the main power structures and begin to form microeconomic units, like principalities between nations getting together to form their own trading corridor, etc. And I think there's a lot of similarity with even now the BRICS nations, Pluto and Aquarius, are trying to begin to create their own system of banking, their own way of doing trade, their own non-SWIFT system maybe one day, and certainly getting away from the petrodollar. So ultimately, I think the other thing we're going to see is a fracturing beneath the umbrella of existing systems. Because you're thinking, what's the third thing that could come up between the American system and the globalist system now that those two experiments are no longer tenable, either one of them? We can't go back to the old way from the 1800s to 1940s. We can't go back to the globalist system. There's not enough poverty people, 8% left, who have struggled and have no money, so you can hire them dirt cheap, right? Maybe just the Philippines, where people are working for a low wage, to do international digital work. So the question I was thinking, I mean, if people were to take the power back, and this is a new system under AI and quantum computing, I wonder if there's just going to be a lot of more micro systems of economic engagement. Like, I know, how about Oregon, Washington, give me another state, gather their forces with, probably Vancouver, Canada, like more like-minded economic alliances begin to form. Something like that. Any thoughts?
I do think that could happen. Specifically because Canada is really being held back right now, and I think there's portions of Canada that really wants to come forward and really be economic powerhouses. And so I see a lot of change in Canada, and I see that impacting the United States. I'm not saying Canada will be the 51st state. I think that's insane. I do think Canada is going to make a lot of they're going to try to deal with the fact that they won't tolerate. Not everyone in Canada is going to tolerate not making money at this point. In other words, Canada is so rich in resources. There's no reason for Canada to ever be poor. It should be one of the richest countries in the world. And
yeah, it is, and it should be it is rich, and it's not, the richness of the country hasn't been resourced or extracted. I think that, things like Alberta being a cancer rising province, the last one to join Canada in the early 1900s, and it has a second house Jupiter transit in Leo right now. So that whole, desire to maximize oil, get it out of a landlocked province and move it forward has started to finally happen. There's now some movement for that province, but ultimately there's a kind of what's the word, cult-like mind around certain features of Canada that have restricted us. Some of it can be the what's the words they use? Well, to repatriate the wrongs done to the indigenous population, truth and reconciliation. But it has gone to such an extreme in Canada, for example, and I'm not against reparations, but in Vancouver, for example, or in British Columbia, a court ruling propelled by our very liberal provincial government has led to the absurdity that banks won't finance people's homes in a lot of places in this province because the possibility is that it's not the landholder, the title holder of the building, of the property, is illegitimate. And you can't refinance a mortgage, you can't buy a house. It's getting to a spot where everyone realizes that this has been an extraordinary overreach of an agenda that at one point maybe felt like a sweet thing, and we got to be accountable for the wrongs that happened by our ancestors, and now it's leading to the extraordinary extreme. So Canada is a little bit like at a snapping point within its own dialectic. You know what I mean? If you start walking around the streets of Canada, the polarization between the conservative and liberal population has gone to be quite extreme.
Yeah, I hear you. I do know quite a few Canadians. This chart right here is all self-imposed in my mind. It's kind of like, and it's just your policies. The question is whether or not Canada is going to change its policies. And if it does change its policies, then Canada will come out fine the other side. It's just it really comes down to what you guys are going to allow yourself to do. If you're going to help the indigenous people, you're going to need finances to do that. You can't do that by driving your economic systems into the ground.
No, absolutely true. And they've been, there's been a lot of help already. There's a lot of government money. I was reading some study about how much of our federal government budget goes to Indigenous projects, Indigenous support, Indigenous this. It's huge. It's bigger than our military budget. So it's pretty crazy. So what I want to finish with then in our time together, since you were like diving into Barbault and you saw how his predictions were accurate, like the financial turnaround, the dip in 2009, and he also predicted the pandemic before he died in 2019, and the economic shift that we're now in as well. Because that 2009 economic shift, has left everybody. There was no true solution, right? For what was happening, the bank ballots and stuff. It was just let's fuel some money into the system, print some money, and turn it around. What is the most optimistic thing you can say about us coming through this trinal relationship between Pluto and Uranus over the next 3 years? Because you seemed optimistic about 2028. And in your optimism, just be very, very tell us why. Like what is this exactly? What is it? Is it quantum computing that'll turn us around?
It's the people. It's the people that I've studied. It's the people that I've met several billionaires in my life. I've met Bill Gates. I've met Steve Ballmer. I got a good feeling for them, even how I didn't spend a lot of time with them. I mean, I really understood who they were, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have basically my sun conjunct Uranus in two different directions, tightly. At 10 degrees Virgo. And then I have Mercury, which is at 9 degrees, and Pluto at 13 degrees. I recognize Pluto very well, and I have a nose for understanding how these people think, and I can listen to them and understand what they're saying. So I can analyze them. And what gives me hope is the people that basically are standing behind. Trump is just a leader. But it's the people that are standing behind him are the people to examine, like Scott Benson. Wonderful man. Now, that man was limited all of his life because he was gay, right? It was Donald Trump that allowed the guy to come out. And the guy is absolutely brilliant. And he's sitting there talking about how he wants to shift our economic reality. He's focused on it like a laser beam. It's him. It's Ruth here. It's the people that basically their backgrounds, who they are, the people who are going to be leading the charge into the next iteration of our societal growth that I'm putting my faith in. I don't see Lord of the Underworld here. I see normal people that want to do good for the world, and there are people like that, Putin, for instance. I keep looking at him. I'm saying, are you ever going to take care of the people? Are you being a good leader is loving your people. You don't let a million people die for a useless war. He doesn't love his people. He's a terrible leader, right? And so I'm just sitting there going, why? Why would anybody keep him in power, right? But when I look at these people and their background and what's motivating them, it's like they want to do good. If you listen to Musk, he wants his higher good is getting people to other planets so that we can save humanity. I mean, uh, the guy is way out there, but I absolutely love the guy for what he's doing. He's basically trying to save humanity. In his mind, we have to be on multiple planets to save humanity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Mm-hmm.
he's trying to do good in his own little way. So what I put my faith in is the people who are basically uh, who are in charge of the $43 trillion or excuse me, not 43, $36 trillion here who are trying to bring the new reality into place. Those are the people I put my faith in. And
Well, it's,
I just hope they do it right.
yeah,
Because
me
if
too.
so that's why I'm optimistic. It's like, please just do it right.
Do it right. Well, yeah, I got to give Elon credit for like trying to bring free speech back to the world with his purchase of Twitter for 44 million. I kind of
Yeah.
feel like the if you want to make a case for the fact that maybe some of the money delete that we're talking about in this kind of more tech space, for example, or free speech and more whatever free thought space are an agenda for the global good, especially, and trying their best to democratize wealth and change the system for the everyday person. I would like to believe that, but then I also can't always reconcile what really is going on, whether you want to blame it on London Square Mile Incorporated or you want to
Oh,
blame it on
we're st
the
we're
demons
gonna
and Aramon.
yeah, we're still gonna have conflicts. There's nothing in that chart that says we're gonna be conflict free and the world's gonna change overnight into peace and heaven on earth, so to speak. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think almost all of your astrology is correct, what you're predicting. I would just say that this is what Pluto is doing. I'm focusing on this presentation is
Pluto and Uranus. Yeah.
what our financial systems, what has to change, why it has to change, those kind of things. I don't disagree with your astrology. I think there's still going to be plenty of conflict. But if we can transfer the world into a new economic system that works for everyone without people suffering and that everybody has a minimal standard of living, um, we have done humanity good. And I think, and so we're just right at the beginning of it, right? It's the beginning of this. And you hear our leaders talking about it. When you hear Scott Benson saying, talking about the Trump accounts, saying we need to do this for adults. And then when you hear Trump talk about the tech executives are going to try to get together and figure out, publicly stated, these tech executives are looking to redistribute wealth back to the American people, right? So that's what gives me hope. And the thing is, the press isn't going to do any of this. You have to listen to the press conferences. You have to listen to people and what they're saying.
Right. Well, hopefully, what people are saying is what they really mean. And at face value, that would be nice to know. At least President Trump, from a Canadian perspective, seems to vacillate quite a lot in whatever he says. So, if he hasn't suddenly gone back on that and said, oh, no, wait, these tech executives want to keep the wealth and forget about
Did,
you guys, at least they're not
did
going
you
back
ever
and
read
forth.
The Art of the Deal?
No, but I can't even imagine he wrote it. Like you got a ghostwriter.
He probably didn't write it, but I guarantee you all of his thoughts are in there because the guy is prolific in speaking. He vacillates, basically, and I understand what he's doing. He's basically trying to position himself to get a better deal. When he says everything's about a deal for him, he literally means it. I mean, it's like everything's a deal, and he's going to vacillate in the way how he approaches things and talks to things to try to get people to move off their position. And so, when I listen to Trump, 90% of the time that's what he's doing. So it's not like he's got a core principle. He's got a goal that he's trying to achieve, and he's going to position himself to try to achieve that goal and get
Well,
the deal.
Well, to the astrology, he comes by it genuinely, right? He's got that energy of the Gemini, which is very fickle or mutable, or you could call it Jekyll Hyde, even, or two sides of one coin, or whatever.
His sun is conjunct Uranus as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah, he's constantly having electrical shocks in his brain, and then
he's
we take
he
his
also
yeah.
has the same. I also relate to him because I told you I got fired a lot. The reason why I get fired is because I can foresee the future really easily, right? It's that I'm ahead of my time all the time. So I could sit there and look at a situation and I'm 6 months ahead of the time. Nobody wants to hear what's going to happen 6 months down the road in a corporation. So you're always if you go outside the box to solve a problem, they'll love you until that you have to go get back into the box and then you don't fit anymore, right?
Right.
So that's my experience in life. Um,
Well, I'll have
and,
to look at your chart because you're the guy who says asteroids need to be spherical, but I bet you we'll find an asteroid or two that's like probably looks like a saucer and it's going to work in terms of
well,
you might have Daedalus, the asteroid
pa-
for the inventor, or you
pa-
might have the Oracle there.
part of it, Lori, is when you put up a chart and you got every asteroid on that chart, I just say, oh my God, it's just I can't delineate that. It's too much. It's like I really like about maybe 12, 15 different asteroids. And it's like that's what I want to deal with, right? And if they're if God made them round, they're cool. If there's some kind of weird shape, eh, there's a
That's so funny.
thousand of those things.
That's true. That's true. But the ancients knew about the asteroid belt, right? They called it the realm of the demons and the angels, and how they knew there was an asteroid belt between Jupiter, the main one between Jupiter and Mars, is
Yeah.
unknown, right? That they recognized there was this bunch of space rubble traveling between those two planets. So life is a big mystery. I really want to thank you for your presentation. It was so
Oh,
fascinating.
you're so welcome, Lori, and I hope I did well by you.
You did. Let
I love what you put out on YouTube. I just wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you.
And
Let's stop the share. Let's stop the share and say goodbye so people can see
okay,
you again. And and I thought there were some things I didn't know, and I learned a lot today, especially about the square mile of ink. There you go. There you are.
yay!
Okay. No, because it was good to leave the slides up because it's so data rich. Like the content is incredibly well done. And so for those
Thank
people
you.
like me who like to go back and look at it. So thank you, Dean. I mean, it's really an intriguing topic. And I know what you're saying about the two systems. Like I didn't have this concept before our conversation about the old system that seemed to work until it didn't, replaced by the globalist system that seemed to work until it didn't. And then there's a third new option trying to emerge. And so perhaps it is as it seems that maybe there will be a redistribution of wealth, and that would be the solution. The other one would quantum computer is going to come up with something so outside the box that we can't even imagine, right?
Yeah. I sometimes I think about Jesus and the are we going to get to a point where we can create fish and bread instantaneously? You know, uh,
Absolutely, yeah.
and so I don't think we're quite at that point, but when we can do that, that's going to be amazing. You
Sure,
know,
you've got to harness the quantum vacuum and the 0 point field, and voila, like we can conjure the vibhuti. That's what the sages would do. We'll get the dust
it,
in my hand.
exactly. One thing I wanted to bring up is I thought you said something that I thought intuitively struck me recently, which is Neptune uh, going retrograde and about how that's going to reveal a lot of secrets. And I think that's the case. I think you nailed that. And I didn't put that together until you said it. So I just really want to thank you for that insight because I didn't really understand what that retrograde was going to do. And it was just like, oh yeah, she's right. So I really, really appreciate that insight
Oh,
today.
you're
I
welcome.
got
You're
that
welcome.
off your recent.
Well, let's put
I
it
get a
this way.
lot of little things from you.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Well, you're definitely the left brain version of me. I kind of really like Neptune retrograde because historically, when I track that, it's usually stuff that was, my metaphor is always the frothy foam on the ocean as the tide is coming in, and then as it goes out, you see what's left, the debris, what's really underneath, and it seems to work. It seems that his like retrograde motion is extremely useful for uncovering that which was hidden, especially if it's by deception, manipulation, coercion, spinning the narrative, that kind of coercion as well. And I also thought, wow, 4 presidents of the United States, under the unaliving process by the London ink crew. That makes sense to me as well. That is evident, especially with JFK, right? So, yeah, very,
Well,
very.
the one that's really important is McKinley because he was assassinated in 1901, and that's when we switched to kind of a globalist system. So right after his death, that's what switched us, and then we went back to the American system during World War II, and then after the World War II was over, the American system wasn't going to work because the world was destroyed, right? So we needed to go back to a globalist system to bring the world back.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Of course, yeah. If you're in the way, you're going to be removed. you know.
I'm not trying to become famous. Uh, what I am trying to do is I'm trying to get a TV show um, redone, and so I'm trying to work with Paramount uh, and Warner Brothers, and I'm waiting for that merger to happen. And the state of California is interfering with that merger, and so they're talking about moving out and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like that's really what I'm involved with right now is trying to get
Mm,
my big projects going. But I keep this stuff kind of going on the side with an opportunity to help people.
nice. Nice. That's very fun. TV show. Okay. Redone.
It's called Chuck, and what the show is this comedy kind of spy show, but it had a hidden layer associated with it, which was a set of puzzles. Like the first, they're logic puzzles. So like, why can't Chuck talk to girls? Is the first logic puzzle in the show, and it has these layers underneath it that are kind of sci-fi layers, and it's like a puzzle. And I figured it out. And so what I'm trying to do is get them to relaunch the show under kind of a different premise so that the whole world can see the masterpiece that this television show was.
Oh,
So
that's
that's what I'm trying to
fascinating.
do.
That's fascinating. I was waiting for you to say you're going to bring back Star Trek.
No, I love Star Trek. I almost had a Star Trek slide in here because when I worked at Microsoft, you had to have a Star Trek or a Star Wars slide to actually be considered credible. So,
Oh, that's so funny. That is so funny. Well, yeah, one of my favorite shows in the 60s. I love Star Trek. I like the real original Star Trek with the goofiness of it all. Well, my
yeah,
dear, we're going to go because I'm going to get some dinner. But I want to thank you so much again.
it's
It was such a well presented slideshow, and it's also fascinating because even though we're talking astrology and the why of the sky equaling what you're showing, it's also a really interesting way of looking at the world in terms of the big picture. You really showed us a big picture view, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome. That was my total goal is just to kind of show that to you so that when you speak to this again or speak about everything that's happening, you'll always have that in the back of your mind.
Well, it is much appreciated. This will be airing probably sometime next week. For those of you
Okay.
listening, still recorded July 16th. So I want to pop you up while the Barbault Basket's still active. And you really want to stay under the rock? Nobody direct you to your website or anything,
Lord,
right?
I don't have a website anymore.
Okay.
I used to do readings for people, and the thing is, people really became dependent on me. And I don't charge. I never charge for it, so I have a problem with charge because I feel this is a very much a spiritual practice for me. And so I couldn't get it to sit right working with people for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a challenge that there is a dependency that can be built up there. And also, it is a spiritual service to give to the world. So, yeah, that's okay. So, we'll just keep you under the rock.
But you can always email me or talk to me, and I watch you all the time, and I always pull something out because you always teach something that
Do
I
you
didn't think.
for people listening to it who might want to follow up, like some of my colleagues might want to have you on the show? Do you want to share an email address publicly in the show, or do you want me just to pass it on to people I know?
No, just pass it on.
All right.
Anybody that you think I can help, legitimately help,
All right.
uh, I am fine to work with. But
Wonderful.
I don't charge, and I'm really looking to help people, and that's all I'm Virgo, right? So I'm here to serve others.
Yeah. Yeah. Pure Virgo energy for sure. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks again, Dean. And I will let you know when this is going live so you'll be ready for it. And I forgot to ask you for a photo. Sorry, guys, who are still listening. But if you don't want a photo of yourself on the graphic, I won't put that. It'll just be me. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you.
That's fine. Just use great. You're pretty. I'm not.
Oh,
I might
well,
have.
you got a pretty bit of facial hair there. All right.
Okay, take care.
All right. Take care. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll let you know when this goes live. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye. Every year I teach Sky Reader in the fall. It's always in September. It's usually 6 weeks long. And this time we're going for 7. We're taking it a little slower, giving you a very kind of leg up first week, which we take the pieces of the sky and teach you to read them in a very constructive and well-paced manner. This is my favorite class to teach. When I teach Sky Reader, I always feel so excited because you have learned to read your own sky. You now know what your chart is all about, and you know how to read the basic language of astrology for your friends, family, and your children, whoever you want to share it with. No, we're not professionally certifying you at Lunatic Astrology, and I'm your teacher, Lori Lothian. We're teaching you to fish so that when you listen to me on YouTube and you're getting all of that guidance, maybe you can also get your own. You know, we don't want to move against the sky. We want to move with the sky. We want to move in the area of our lives that brings us flow and ease, because the sky supports that. And by having a knowledge of what the sky is saying, and relative to our own natal sky, we are able to operate at a new level. That level is about flow. It is about not arguing with what is happening and moving in the direction of what wants to happen. It is so darn simple. Life is full of ups and downs, but if you know that there's a swamp, 2 doors away, and if you walk that way, you're going to get stuck in quicksand, you can avoid that. If you go to the left instead of the right, there's a beautiful meadow with a lake. Why not take that path? The sky is always grabbing us. It's called the grahas, or the grabbers. The planetary planets, like where they're going in the sky, the transits, that moving heavens, the moving stars, the map of time is a map of where we should avoid getting stuck and where we may move forward with freedom. And the grabber part of planets is that they're almost like celestial teasers, right? They want to grab us and make us move in a direction. Sometimes it's not in our highest and best good. And I don't mean in a conscious, malefic way. I just mean you can take something like Neptune and make it all about transcendence and spiritual union and high creativity and imagination. And you can take it all the way down to drug addiction, and destitution maybe, and even things to do with mental challenges, health challenges. So you can operate at all levels of every planet. In Sky Reader, we show you your highest potential. Now, this is an introductory class. If you want to come to Sky Reader to be your own astrologer and time your best life, then you're coming because you are curious astrologically. You're not coming because you've already taken some heavyweight courses under your belt. You're coming because you've been listening to my channel or other astrologers, and you've always had a curiosity about learning, and you've always wanted to learn to read the sky, which is the map of time. So I'm hoping some of you will come join me there, because I've graduated hundreds of students so far, and the feedback is wonderful. And I invite all of my students, former, to come back every year and play around in redoing the course for 75% off, because I think the more you do it, the more you deepen it. We have guest teachers every year. When you join Sky Reader, you get the archived vault. In other words, you can go back and watch other guest classes in astrocartography, the astrology of relocation, and things to do with zodiacal releasing and more. We have these guest teachers coming in this year. Are so much fun. We have a guest teacher about the love codes, Donnie Lim of astrology, learning to read your Venus story. We have a guest teacher coming in about medical or wellness astrology. We have another one showing us about how to choose the perfect day to do something, day and time to launch your website, get married. That's called electional astrology. We have what's your purpose, dharma kind of thing with another teacher. So what we're doing is we're giving you a lot of content. What you're doing is you're taking time to learn, but also to hold on to that content forever. It is evergreen. Once you have it, you never don't have it. If it's over your head at first, it won't be over your head when you take a second stab at it. Weekly Q&As, different time zones, so we can get people around the world in those Q&As. We alternate between evening and night every second week on Wednesday nights, and usually they're at 5:30 or 6 p.m. Pacific time. We also have the idea that the class itself is now happening at 9:30 a.m. in Pacific time on Saturday, starting on the 19th of September. So that's wonderful. We have a Facebook group and a Discord group that we have moderators running, where you can meet other people who are learning astrology, share your notes, and get to meet some new astrologically curious friends. Who knows, you might meet your soulmate there. And we're also taking you through a journey that is sequential. from learning to read the sky to being able to use two very profound timing tools to help you understand your reality and begin to move forward with ease and grace. The feedback from Sky Reader year after year has been phenomenal, and every time I teach it, I learn to make it more simple, more well-paced, and more easy for you to grasp. So I'm in 7 years of doing this. I think I'm getting it down finally to a fine art thanks to you guys. I'm going to show you the website just so you see what it looks like. I'm now moving most of my content to laurilothian.com. It used to be somewhere else at Padaya. If you're there already, nothing is taken away from you. At this point, though, I'll show you the new website so you can take a gander at what the sky looks like over there, what my site looks like. And I hope to see some of you in class. I always say this, and I'm not making this up. You might probably think, oh, that's a sales pitch. Oh, I might not teach this next year. That's not true. I always wonder if I'm just going to retire and start to write books. And my agent wants me to write a book. And so I have a lot on my plate to get done in this life. Legacy is to leave a book behind. So for me, when I say I may not teach this next year, Laurie may not teach this next year. Okay. All right. So this is the website, laurilothian.com. If you go /sky-reader, you'll be at the introduction to the course and the enrollment page. We're on a discount code right now until the end of July. Well, it's not a code, it's just a discount. There's 40% off the full price. And then in August, depending on when you hear this, there'll be another lower price, not as discounted as July's early enrollment price, but by September, it will go to full price. So make sure that you get in this class with a discount if that's something you're looking for. So you can see this beautiful website was created by my team. I think it's gorgeous. Learn to read your sky. And then there's a preview of what we have going on. So when you get into the course backdrop and you're there, you're going to have like stuff already waiting for you, a little tutorial on how to cast your chart in whole sign houses, free meanings of the 12 houses PDF. And I have what I call your Astro Toolkit. And I'm always adding more stuff to that toolkit. You don't need a professional software. You can use Astrocom, astro-seek.com, time passages. These are free softwares. This is not requiring you to purchase professional software in order to learn in my course. And you'll see that we have the toolkit here. These are elements that go in, how to cast your chart in whole sign houses. These are already in the back end of the program. Your cheat sheet pack, 12 signs, 12 houses guide. This is just learning tools. This is all going to help you learn. For most classes, I'll be putting together a handbook to help guide you through each class, which is new this year, kind of a prompts, a questions, things to fill out so that you can use it as a kind of self-study tool, just print it out on a PDF on a computer. I'll aim to keep it black and white, of course, so you don't have to worry about color. And then we see that the Astrology 101 is we set you up really slowly. I call it the slow start, where we're really going to build the basic building blocks together so that when you come off of week one, you are like someone who went to kindergarten to learn the alphabet. You're going to have the basics in your toolkit, in your understanding already. And then we talk about the various parts of the sky, the big four, the 12 houses, dignity matters. Planets have dignity. You want to understand that. Otherwise, there's nothing you're going to understand without that. Dignity matters. We're also using whole sign houses, and this is ancient Hellenistic astrology. The focus will not be on the outer planets because we can't use them as time lords. And so it's not that there's anything wrong with the outer planets, but they're not good for timing your best life. Unless you want to live 248 years, says Pluto, 164 years, says Neptune, or 84 years, says Uranus. They're not the most timely tools, right? Solar returns is one of the things we do, and we learn about the perfection ages. Now, you may think I know all about my solar return and my perfection age. I don't think you do. I embed in some advanced tools there for you that you won't probably find anywhere else after like 8 years and thousands of clients, nonstop teaching and seeing real clients in the trenches. I have figured a few things out, and I always like to share what I figured out with you guys so that you can also use those tools the way I do. There's always bonus content here. And so you get from me, not to use until you've taken Sky Reader, the birthday chart advanced course as your solar return, the annual perfections advanced course, and how to find people in your chart. Where's my mom? Where's my kids? Where's my husband? Where's my siblings? How to find the planets that represent those people in your chart. That is also a part of a course that I've taught that I give you as a part of your bonus toolkit. Okay, so I hope you guys will go over. I hope you'll have fun if you come to study with me. I would love to see you there. When I talk about teaching, without a doubt, it is my favorite thing to do. It gives me a joy, actually. I remember years ago, I went to see a psychic reader, in Coquitlam, Canada. That's outside of Vancouver. She looked at me as I walked in the room. This is like 15 years ago. And she said, "Teacher, teacher, teacher, you are a teacher." At the time, I was a magazine editor and a writer, and I had no idea what she was talking about. And look at her today. She was right 15 years later. That is my passion. That is what I do. Hope you'll join me. I'll see you guys in Sky Reader, and let's have some fun learning together. Everyone have a very good, wherever you are, day, month, or year.
Lunatic astrology.